A very good evening. You're joining Prime TV News with me, Vibhuda Vijay Bandara. First, let's look at today's headlines. Adverse weather displaces people. The president witnesses Japanese new emperor's official proclamation of enthronement. The Prime Minister opines on a national health insurance scheme. The Easter Sunday attack report will be presented in Parliament tomorrow. Justin Trudeau's Liberals win Canada election. And now for news in detail. President Maithripala Sirisena participated in the ceremony where the Japanese new emperor officially proclaimed his enthronement. The event was attended by heads of state and dignitaries from over 180 countries. The grand feast of Emperor Naruhito took place in Tokyo's Imperial Palace. President Maithripala Sirisena was accompanied by world leaders. Other dignitaries who attended the event included Prince Charles of Britain, Prince Philip of Belgium, King of Sweden, and Emir of Qatar. The official ceremony began with the arrival of the Emperor Naruhito in his traditional royal attire, with Empress Masako in the main hall of the Imperial Palace. After 30 years in the throne, Emperor Akihito, father of Emperor Naruhito, abdicated the throne and Prince Naruhito succeeded as 126th Emperor of Japan. Meanwhile, President Maithripala Sirisena, who is on a 3-day official visit to Japan, had a discussion with former Japanese Prime Minister Yasuo Fukuda. The discussion took place after a delegation including Yasuo Fukuda and former Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka Kenichi Suganuma arrived at the hotel where the president is staying. The former Prime Minister of Japan commended the services rendered by President Maithripala Sirisena during his tenure. Former Prime Minister of Japan pointed out that even after the retirement of the president, his program for Sri Lanka should be continued. The president said that despite his retirement, he will continue to work towards enhancing cooperation between Sri Lanka and Japan. The importance of working together to combat terrorism was also discussed. During his tenure, the president thanked Japan for its assistance in pursuing Sri Lanka's development and economic aspirations and stressed that Sri Lanka will continue to be a good friend of Japan. The Disaster Management Agency stated that with the adverse weather situation, a large number of people have been displaced countrywide. The Department of Meteorology says showers or thunder showers will occur in Western and Sabaragamu provinces and in Gol, Matara, Jaffna, Mana and Puttalam districts. Showers or thunder showers will occur elsewhere after 1 p.m. Fairly heavy falls, about 75 millimeters, can be expected at some places in Western, Sabaragamu and Uva provinces and in Puttalam district. Misty conditions can be expected at some places in Eastern, Uva and North Central provinces during the morning. Meanwhile, sluice gates of many reservoirs have been opened with heavy rains. The Disaster Management Centre warns the public to be vigilant in this regard as well. The Puttalam District Disaster Management Unit states that 7,660 persons in the district were affected by the bad weather condition. The most affected area is the Puttalam Divisional Secretariat Division. Victims are accommodated in safe places of the Divisional Secretariat area. According to our reporters, sluice gates of Tabbova, Daduroya and Rajangani reservoirs have been opened. Due to heavy rains, the winds caused uprooting of trees and blocked traffic in the weather-affected areas. A number of houses in Ithiliyadi of Puttalam have been completely inundated with rising flooding. Our correspondents say that the people are greatly inconvenienced due to this situation. Meanwhile, several areas in the Gol district as well have been affected by heavy rain, resulting many roads in the district being flooded. Presidential candidate of SLPP Gotabaya Rajapaksa says he will make Sri Lanka a hub of global gem and jewellery industry under a government led by him. The candidate said so at a campaign held in Rakwana. Supporters of Gotabaya and a handful of political representatives were present at the campaign organised by parliamentarian Ranjit Zoiza at the Godakavala Divisional Secretariat grounds. The presidential candidate spoke of how the country was rapidly developed under the previous Rajapaksa government following the eradication of terrorism. According to him, international ports, airports, expressways and a range of infrastructure were flowering island-wide. He pointed out that Colombo was made the fastest growing city in Asia those days. Gotabaya Rajapaksa also spoke of already formed plans which will take the nation out of economical ruins. He said agriculture, industries and businesses will be subjected to prompt development process under his governance. The current tax system will be replaced with a simpler, fairer taxation. Elaborating on the potential of gem industry to attract foreign revenues, the presidential candidate spoke of prospective mass employment in sector and the plans of furtherance of the industry. Presidential candidate of National People's Power Movement Kumar Disanayake says burning issues of the Ratnapura district will be addressed in an administration of his. JVP's chief organizer Shanta Padma Kumara and a number of politicians were also present at the campaign held in Ratnapura. Kumar Disanayake pointed out that the major problem in the political system of the country is the gulf between the interests of people and politicians. The candidate also added that his party has already formed feasible plans in the fields of agriculture, gem and jewellery industry, small-scale tea industry and so on, which will help move the country forward. He said small-scale tea production has dealt with a severe blow and, for instance, tea estates producing less than 800 kilograms receives losses. The presidential hopeful also noted that Sri Lanka has failed to reap real benefits of the gem industry due to the lack of technology in grading. He added that though the country unearthed blue sapphires, the value goes to foreign countries as a comprehensive grading process is not present in the island. The candidate said that such issues will immediately be addressed with the industrial development plan put forward by them. He also said an action will be taken to prevent frequent flooding in Ratnapura. Disanayake highlighted that his aspirant governance will rather be focused on real problems of the people. The European Union election monitoring team has arrived in Sri Lanka to monitor the presidential election. The team of 30 has arrived in the country on the invitation of the Elections Commission and is currently conducting their observations across the country. At a ceremony held in Colombo, they explained about their activities in Sri Lanka.
I would like to stress here that the European Union Election Observation Mission is an independent mission. This is the 6th election observation mission that the European Union deploys in Sri Lanka. Today, the European Union Election Observation Mission deploys 30 long-term observers to observe the pre-election, election and post-election period across the island. Over the next week, they are going to meet with several interlocutors at district level, such as Election Commission administration members, political parties and candidates, media outlets, civil society organizations, and they will attend campaign activities all over the island.
Presidential candidate Sajid Premadasa says that the issue of illicit drug and alcohol trafficking in prisons has been a serious problem.
He also said that he would not hesitate to carry out the death penalty against drug traffickers. Addressing a gathering of medical practitioners in Colombo yesterday, Minister Sajid Premadasa expressed these views.
What is your policy on illicit drug, alcohol, tobacco in terms of its control financially and legislatively?
I think the present restrictions that were brought about by our government through the Honourable Minister's intervention in the area of tobacco and alcohol is to be lauded. In fact, I would go the further step of providing more restrictions and controls in order to ensure that there's the least amount of tobacco and alcohol consumption in our country, because we all know that it has a detrimental impact on the health and well-being of the people. I have observed, I have seen, and I have heard from a variety of sources in the internal security arena that the business that these drug barons and drug lords, which they conducted while they were out, in fact expands once they enter prison. That is a serious issue, which is causing grave concern. Because of the proliferation of drug business, I think our future generations are impacted in a disastrous manner. I actually have no hesitation in implementing the death penalty for the drug lords. I mean, not for the minnows, but for the major drug barons.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the National Health Insurance Scheme will be established to provide health care to all the people. The Prime Minister made this statement participating at a program held in Battaramulla.
And reward them where they are successful in that field. Then you come to another important area, which also is the question of health services. We have a public sector and a private sector. And how do we make these health services available to all? So as a government, our next step has to be to build in a national health insurance scheme where everyone participates. You have to participate, and you have the national health insurance scheme, which will then enable you to get services. That itself will help the research function. More people come in, and they'll be coming in for these type of new diseases.
The annual conference of the National Health Research Forum began today at Water's Edge, Battaramulla, under the aegis of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Minister Rajita Senaratne and Deputy Minister Faisal Qasim also participated at the event. The final report on the Easter Sunday terror attack is due to be presented in Parliament tomorrow. Deputy Speaker Ananda Kumarasiri, the chairman of the Parliamentary Select Committee, appointed to look into the matter, said that the report contains steps and recommendations that should be taken to prevent the reoccurrence of such incidents. The report will be 200 pages. However, the Deputy Speaker stated that although no power has been entrusted with the committee to name the perpetrators of the attack, the committee is empowered to identify shortcomings and weaknesses in the country's security system. The case filed against former Secretary of Defense Gotabaya Rajapaksa before a court in California by the daughter of former editor of the Sunday Leader, Lasantha Wickrematunge, has been dismissed. The case was filed on charges on murder and torture. Gotabaya Rajapaksa had filed a motion before the California District Court asking the court to reject the case because there was no jurisdiction to hear it. The court, after considering the motion, stated that he was charged with his role as the Secretary of Defense of Sri Lanka and that it was an official function of a foreign government. The California District Court has ruled that it is the policy of the US State Department to grant such officials immunity. A meeting between presidential candidates and Election Commission Chairman Mahinda Deshapriya was held at the Election Secretariat. The discussions was focused on the presidential election and its conduct. The party representatives attended the meeting, discussed on what should and should not be done to ensure a free and fair election. The representatives were also educated on the ballot paper and the manner in which the presidential election will be held. Parliamentarian Rohini Kaviratne says the opposition is trying to reignite violence present in the country before the year 2015. She was speaking at a press conference held at the Sirikota UNP headquarters, referring to an attack she had to face during provincial council elections while being pregnant. The parliamentarian said the Rajapaksa regime was responsible for a wide range of atrocities. The women's treaty signed by presidential candidates Sajid Premadasa and the women's organizations were also discussed at the press conference. The parliamentarian said a stern action will be taken to mitigate domestic violence under a new government led by Sajid Premadasa and empower women economically. Parliamentarian Rohini Kaviratne urged the media to be unbiased in their reporting. The Financial Crimes Investigations Division informed the Fourth Magistrate that investigations into suspicious bank accounts in connection with the case against MP Namal Rajapaksa are being carried out. The case has been filed against Namal Rajapaksa under the charges of a financial malpractice by leasing out of 4.5 acres of land at the Chris Transford Square at Colombo Fort. The litigation will be called again on January 21st next year. The case against Samara Pulige Niraj Roshan alias Ali Roshan was taken up for hearing before the Colombo High Court today. The order on the preliminary objections against the case will be announced on the 14th. The Colombo High Court today ordered the Superintendent of Prisons to appear before court on the 14th of this month in connection with the case against Chairman of Avantgarde Nisanka Senadipati and former Chairman of Rakna Lanka Major General Palita Fernando. The case has been filed on bribery and embezzlement of 35.5 million rupees. Minister Daya Gamage says giving Samurdhi and other concessions to the public will restart before the 31st of November, though they have been paused due to elections. The minister said the decision to hold the giving of concessions was made in response to a request made by the Elections Commission chairman. Highlighting recent progress made in Samurdhi distribution, the minister questioned can all development projects by the government will be halted due to the election. Speaking on latest media reports, the minister also requested the media to be responsible and unbiased in reporting. The 10th Annual International Maritime Conference, Goal Dialogue 2019, organized by the Sri Lanka Navy with the participation of representatives from 55 countries, concluded in Colombo. The two-day conference held at the Golf Face Hotel in Colombo under the theme Refining Mindset to Address Transnational Maritime Threats, a review of the decade. The Goal Dialogue 2019 intends to focus on addressing the future with a revised mindset to meet the maritime threats based on the experiences of last 10 years. From all stakeholders, and the stakeholders have been invited to present their case studies based on facts, figures, lessons learned and recommendations in preparing for the third decade of the new millennium. The funeral of the former opposition leader of the Western Provincial Council and former UNP organizer of Homagama, Manjusri Arangala, was held yesterday. The funeral of late Manjusri Arangala was held at Wilfred Senanayak Grounds, Homagama. Manjusri Arangala, who used to be the UNP organizer, had been in politics for over 30 years. He was 61 years old when he passed away. Mahasangha, led by Venerable Ittapane Dhammalankar Mahanayaka Thera, and several political representatives were present at the funeral. With that, we end the local segment of Prime TV News, and now we move on to Biz News. The Cabinet has approved a proposal by President Maithripala Sirisena to make details of employment and training opportunities in the public sector accessible through the Smart Sri Lanka software, which functions under the Sri Lanka Career Guidance Centre. Details of the vacancies available at all government ministries and institutions under their purview, including those published in the Government Gazette, recruitment notices, information pertaining to special loan schemes and technical assistance granted by the institutes will be made available through this software to make it more accessible to unemployed youth. Information from state banks and financial institutions for entrepreneurs, business enterprises and information pertaining to local and foreign entrepreneurship opportunities and vocational and training opportunities provided by government institutions will also be made available through this project. With that, we end today's Prime TV News Bulletin. Prime News will return tomorrow. And in the meantime, make www.itnnews.lk your go-to source for the very latest in news from home and overseas. Have a pleasant day. Good night.